Okay, I've come back again to once again, go go over part of this, this comment that I didn't even know existed until relatively recently. And this is the second half of it, I guess you could say. I'm gonna go over a little bit of what I just went over, and then I'm just gonna, go from there. It says the Bible preaches wholeheartedly. Okay, I was talking about the genocide and all types of stuff that I went over in the first part. Why that's just, you know, I'm kind of my arguments are kind of weak, but trust me when I say this is not this is based off of things that I know. These are based off things I've studied, and I would have to really refresh myself a lot, and just really learn the Bible a lot better than I do now, and learn ancient teachings and stuff better than I know now to confirm that what I say is not just some New Age bullshit. It's founded, heavily founded. But it says talks about Jesus as a crazy masochist or something like that that sometimes beats people. Blah blah blah. It's the stuff that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. This idea that Jesus was even always fully conscious is another misunderstanding, and I think that a lot of people forget that, or it's not very commonly accepted that Jesus learned a lot of things in other countries too. He went all over the place and learned many things that he learned, and there's a part of the Bible where it says he becomes wise with God and man, and then when he comes back, he's completely different. So, this over westernized, Christian understanding of Jesus that exists these days, it's not logical. It says, "Are you aware that eating when been over the shellfish? Also, you say in one ear, out the other, but you're missing the point. You're way missing the fact that no one talks about dopamine in the Bible. Been over that. Dopamine doesn't necessarily have to be in the Bible for its function to be represented in the Bible, because happiness and joy and it's all connected. I mean, come on, let's get real here. We know these things not by some finer detail that you would need in a lab, but we know it because we experience it, because it's us. It's part of us. Or whichever religious text you subscribe to, which that's a whole other kettle of fish that it would be difficult to school you in. But if I knew everything there was to know, you would be fried bringing that up. Or furries, or yith, or anything like that. We don't even know if there is a hell. That's stupid, because in the original video, I explained that hell is it's like an accumulative state. It's something that doesn't necessarily you don't necessarily have to be in a physical place like hell. It's a vibration. Okay? And I've stated it before, the state itself that gets you in hell in the first place is hell. I mean, the fact that you're not in some higher state of consciousness right now, at least to a certain extent, you don't stay in the highest state, but you still stay in a relatively enlightened state, right? The fact that you're not in a state like that right now is you're in a distortion. You're in a hell, unless you have some kind of grace, unless you have some type of vision. That's why even though these religious people don't have the right, they don't have the truth as it should be necessarily, they still, to a certain degree, have been risen from a certain level of hell that just exists. It's very much a scientific thing, just as much as it is any other type of thing. Okay, it goes on and it talks about Yif, which is absolutely disgusting, or anything like that. We don't know if there is a hell. Near-death experiences exist also, and it's not brain waves. Maybe in some situations, but definitely not in every situation. It is not brain waves. Reserved for people who cosplay as animals. I think it's a lot deeper than that. That's how everybody shrugs it off. They say it's cosplay for animals, but really, it's a certain mindless activity. It gets you in a negative trance, like state. Any kind of mindless activity does that. And in order to be in a state of ananda, you have to be in a high state. You have to be in a positive trance, not a negative trance, not a mindless trance, not a passive trance. We don't even know if, we've been over that. The phrase is literally only used by anti-furs to degrade furries. I don't think that furries really degrade furries in quite the way you think. What they do is they give a disservice to a proper lighting of a degradation that furries already oppose on themselves. That's what's happening. In no way does it hold any real religious precedent well. I mean, that really depends on how you define religion, doesn't it? I think the closest thing you can come to a lot of this off the top of my head, Sodom and Gomorrah, we've been over that, we've been over that. Sugarcoating because YouTube hates free speech. Well, I don't think you're sugarcoating anything. You just got a lot of emotions towards these things, and someone who's supposed to be so rational is not supposed to be, I don't know why you think that that the ultimate goal of these teachings is what you hear in the church. The church, the dark occult created a lot of these stupid misconceptions in the church anyway. They created this whole idea that the whole Bible it's all the Word of God and all the blood sacrifices and all that kind of shit, man. Get out of here with that. Man, that's got nothing to do with God. Strangers, something that a lot of furries and even, the nitwit I mentioned originally, emphatically agree with, and a lot of Bible-thumping Christians, which don't exist because they're not really understanding anything Jesus said, disagree with, and even the Bible itself disagrees with, as mentioned before. It says, big old whatever, you're blowing something's video out of proportion. And I say something because I don't even want to say his name, to what he's actually saying. And if anything, you're pointing a lot more of your own resentment at the wrong sorts of people. You should quite literally be preaching to your choir. Yes, well, you might not like it, but my master, who I'm not going to say the name of him, I'm not going to say what his name is. My spiritual master, I'm not going to say his name. If you know, you know. I'm not going to get into it. Said we are our brother's keeper. Conscious is a collective thing. And if these kinds of mindless activities are happening, you know, it's a lot like at these bars and stuff. If any of you are psychic, and you know what I mean, if any of you are genuinely psychic, and you can astrally project, I want you to astrally project to a bar. You will never walk inside a bar again. It's never going to happen. You know, just like there's evil and crackheads and stuff on this realm, there's the same thing in these other realms. This is just a watered down, you know, a lot of the things inside the Bible are really just watered down metaphysics. I point to the Bible because it is a pretty good, you know, well-known book, but I should probably, you know, explain myself a little better but I don't even know where to begin because this stuff is so complicated that I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to end. People make a lot of assumptions. And you know, Jesus, a lot of things he taught were what the yogis taught, and if you study a lot of his core teachings, you know, it's no wonder Mahatma Gandhi and a lot of the brahmacharis agreed with them because essentially they are brahmacharya. There's a certain bliss that you can attain. There's a certain state of peace, and there are certain higher states of consciousness you can attain when you refrain from mindless activities and you meditate and you know, raise your consciousness up to a much higher level. And the problem is that a lot of these anti-religious people are so brainwashed by the modern day church. They are so convinced that this is the one and only state of Christianity that if you try to tell them the truth, they'll insist the Bible thumpers are right and that, you know, that you're wrong about God and that God doesn't exist. It's an unfortunate thing because history tells us the exact opposite.